Why ED pills might not work if your brain's not on board. If you struggle with ED or sexual arousal dysfunction, SAD, this episode's for you. Perhaps you're trying to overcome ED with ED pills or some other physiological modalities. Well, you need to know about brain health and how it's impacting your ability to achieve and maintain an erection, and especially to see that through for a healthy sexual experience. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh, your hostess with the mostest here at Porn Brain Rewire, which might be a little bit of a spoiler alert. Today, we're going to break down why ED pills don't work sometimes and when you can or should use them. So, stay with me until the end of the podcast for your brain hack strategy regarding ED pills today and how they impact your brain. All right, so let's start with the idea that what is causing the ED or the sexual arousal dysfunction in the first place? Because we know the swiftest way to solve a problem is to actually figure out what is at the core of it. What is the root of the problem? And then if you go directly to the root, you can solve that problem in a much more cost effective, in a faster, in a less struggle kind of way. So, at the core of most people's erectile dysfunction in today's day and age, 2024, moving into 2025, is porn use. We know this. There's a recent study from the Journal of Sexual Medicine that correlated excessive pornography consumption with an increase in erectile dysfunction, especially in young men. Now, the kicker of that study is that when those men sought treatment and they eliminated their porn use, their erectile dysfunction was more easily overcome and they were able to perform sexually again. Long story short, from science, we know porn use contributes to erectile dysfunction. Leaving porn behind makes it so that you no longer have ED or SAD. But that might be a simple solution. It might not be the easiest one. And we'll get into that in a minute. But today, let's talk about now you're trying to use ED pills to deal with your erectile dysfunction in the short run. I call that a band aid. You're bleeding out. You need a band aid to stop the bleeding. But will a band aid heal your wound? No. You know what heals your wound? You do. We are self healing. Our bodies and our mind are self healing if we push them in the right direction. And that's a big if. So every time you go back to porn, you're going in the opposite direction of the healthy brain performance pattern. We know that porn use creates dysfunction in the electrical energy pattern in your brain. That dysfunction is what contributes to the ED, which makes it so that you need the band aid to be able to stop the bleeding out when you're trying to be with your partner. So many men stay in this loop. They stay in the loop of needing to watch porn because they're not able to perform with their partner because porn has caused the ED, but porn becomes their only sexual outlet, which then reinforces the ED, and the loop goes on and on and on. Now, one other aspect of that loop is worrying about the ED. And we know from science that healthy erectile arousal function comes from the perfect balance of the two branches of the autonomic or automatic nervous system. These two branches are called sympathetic and parasympathetic. You probably know sympathetic as fight or flight, but it is the speed or the branch of the nervous system that has to do with stimulation and high levels of arousal. So when you're experiencing a stress response like fight or flight, you're in a highly stimulated state. Now, you can't be in that state to achieve an erection, but you do need that state to be stimulated enough to be able to engage in a sexual experience. It's imperative, though, that you get into the parasympathetic state. Rest and digest. It's the other branch of the autonomic nervous system. So there's two branches: sympathetic, stimulation, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic branch, rest and digest. For the most part, what happens from porn use and then from the anxiety about sexual performance issues is that you get and stay in what's called sympathetic dominance. Your brain stays in this hyper aroused state. This is what porn does to you. This is what worrying and anxiety does to you. So now you're in this hyper aroused state and you're not able to come out of it. And the loop goes on and on. Porn, ED, worry, lack of sexual performance, porn, ED, worry, lack of sexual performance, on and on and on. How do we break this loop? We're going to break this loop by going directly to your brain and balancing the autonomic nervous system for the perfect amount of sympathetic use. That's stimulation, not hyperarousal, just perfect arousal, and enough of relaxation in the nervous system. That is missing for most people. Just in today's day and age, we're in fight or flight as it is, then porn contributes to that, which I will also get to. Now, if you try to use ED pills and they don't work, why does that happen? That happens because the ED pills are designed to increase blood flow. That is what allows you to have an erection. But we know that there has to be a certain amount of healthy baseline arousal in your brain for those ED medications to work. So if you've tried the medications and they don't work, that's because there's higher level of brain dysfunction at play where they're not even able to arouse you enough because there's so much brain dysfunction. This is at the core of ED. And if you are seeing that the meds aren't even working, there's likely high levels of dysfunction. Now, the reason that I know this is that I perform an evaluation called a qEEG brain map. It is a way of visualizing how every area of your brain is performing using energy and how this sympathetic and parasympathetic use of energy is balanced or lack thereof. I have worked with hundreds of men helping them to overcome ED using technology, but what I see in their brain map is very imbalanced levels, lots of hyperarousal, stress, and anxiety, not enough rest and digest. And actually, the main component that I see is something that I call drained brain, where going to porn often and at high levels of intensity makes it so that power in the brain shifts so that they're basically stuck in artificial neutral. If your brain is stuck in neutral, it cannot be aroused anymore because it's been drained so much from that hyper aroused state. So, this pattern is visualized on a qEEG brain map. If you want that done, go over to drtrishleigh.com and check it out because you can see the areas and the level of dysfunction very easily yourself. And me and my team, we help you to be able to understand it. Okay, so the mechanism of action for the ED medication is that it has to have enough arousal to work with in your brain. So that might be another reason that sometimes you're able to achieve an erection using the medication, other times you are not. Now, most times people will go and they'll go to their urologist, they'll go to their family physician, which of course I think you should do. Knowledge is power, get as much information, but if they all come back clean, it's likely that there is arousal dysfunction in the brain. We know from other scientific studies that in most of these ED studies, the men involved all checked out physically. All the physical parameters were in check. It was arousal dysfunction in their brain that was contributing to and leading to the erectile dysfunction. And once it was healed, then they were able to perform sexually again. Not just perform, but to experience sexuality and to enjoy it again. So, this is because these two branches have to be healed. This creates a significant disconnect in the brain, mind, body, whole person approach to looking at ED and SAD. So here's how it works. There's underlying neurological dysregulation in your brain, the brain dysfunction that is visualized on the qEEG brain map. We see it. We know it's contributing. Then that makes it so that you have an anxious mind. You might feel anxious, depressed, unmotivated. You may have brain fog. These are all of the things that go along with those dysfunctional brain patterns. It might be difficult to focus. You have urges and cravings back towards explicit matter because that's where your brain is getting the high levels of dopamine that it needs to feel good. But then inherently, when it's time to perform with your partner, there's not enough dopamine there. So, this is the problem. mind body disconnect. When it comes to the body, you're not able to get an erection, you're not able to hold an erection, you're not able to have an orgasm. There has to be a perfect balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic for that to happen. So, what's the solution? Using neuroplasticity, now we have advanced science, advanced technology. And what I found from the thousands of people that I work with is they will go all the old school routes to try to solve this problem. One thing in particular that kind of chaps my arse, there's not many things that chap my arse. One thing is that if you look up what's causing ED, it will say that there's psychological parameters like performance anxiety or like depression. What is missing in that research is that these psychological components are actually neurobiological in origin. So that's the mind body disconnect. So if you are told that the reason that you have ED is because of psychological aspects, those psychological aspects are scientifically proven to be neurological, brain dysfunction patterns. So there's a disconnect there. And we can use advanced technology, first of all, to visualize it, to see what's going on in there. So when I do a qEEG brain map, I can see if a person has ED. I can see to what level. I can see if there's anxiety, depression, if there's head injury. There's a lot of brain patterns that I can see. If there was learning challenges or ADHD that might be contributing, what happens then is I know that there's one or more types of brain dysfunction that is contributing to ED. Then, using technology, we can guide the brain back into using a very healthy, balanced level of sympathetic and parasympathetic instead of using an imbalanced level of a wired and tired brain pattern, for simplicity's sake. I'm able to use tech to guide your brain back. Now, I offer two ways if people are looking for help with ED. One is a digital program that you can get started right away, and I teach you about the technology. The other is working with me directly and having a qEEG brain map performed and then using advanced technology at home. It's the fastest way, the easiest, the least amount of struggle way to use your brain to change itself. That's what neuroplasticity is. Neuroplasticity is the brain's changeability. You can push your brain to improve its performance pattern by using workouts. That's what neurofeedback, a very top tier level neuromodulation type of modality, does for you. So you do a session, and basically, it teaches your brain to use more of the healthy balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic, not out in the extremes of the pendulum effect. I call it the pendulum effect because if your brain swings over here with stress and anxiety, then it swings over here with fatigue and exhaustion, and it will leave you feeling completely drained. That's what porn does. But also, that's what struggling with ED does with that downward spiral we've already talked about. So every day you do a session, and it's strengthening your brain from the inside out. You don't have to think about it. You're going to the core, the neurological dysregulation, and you're regulating it using technology. Then me and my team, we offer coaching strategies in the top tier program to help you pattern interrupt the places in your life where you are using the pendulum effect. So you stop using it and you only start using the healthy regulated pattern. In this way, you can heal your brain from the inside out. Now, what can you do in the meantime? It's imperative that you no longer desensitize the reward center and the reward pathways in your brain. And it's imperative that you resensitize your brain back into healthy pleasure from healthy sources at healthy levels in your life. What that means is you experience sexuality with your partner. It might not be healthy sexuality right now if you're struggling to achieve and maintain an erection, but practice makes perfect. One other thing that I want to tell you about the ED meds, that this is a big one, is that every time you use the meds, you're basically robbing your brain of the opportunity to practice healthy arousal. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the concept of muscle memory. Muscle memory is that your brain learns how to become aroused and stay aroused. So, what's happened from porn use is your brain hasn't had to become aroused from the inside out. It's gone to an external source that has slid it into very High levels of arousal very quickly. Easy button, instant gratification, dopamine flood in the brain to go from 0 to 60 in terms of arousal. Now, now you have to learn how to go from 0 to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, never back to 60 because that's too much stimulation, hyperarousal. But when you learn to resensitize your brain in a healthy sexual experience, this is increasing that muscle memory and working that muscle of your brain to become aroused in a healthy way. Every time you use an ED pill, you do not give your brain the opportunity to do that. So, if you feel the need to use ED pills, they should be used sparingly, not every time. Because, especially when I work with people in my neurofeedback program, I want their brain to get as much practice becoming aroused so that the healthy pleasure pathways can be revitalized, reinvigorated, and fired up again back into their healthy sex life while we're weeding out those old neural pathways. This is how we do a pleasure pathway reset. So let's get your brain hack strategy and put a bow on this. Number one, if you feel the need to use ED pills, use them sparingly. Don't use them every time. I joke with my clients all the time. There's no woman that's going to complain about you spending more time building arousal with her. Not a person going to complain about that. Yes, they want you to be able to become aroused with them because that can become very demoralizing for your partner. Many women then begin to think it's them, that you're not aroused by them. They don't understand the intricacies of this. So, to remind you, the intricacy is that your brain is struggling with arousal dysfunction. That changes the cascade of electrical energy, of hormones, of neurotransmitters, and of blood flow so that you're not able to achieve an erection. It is coming from your brain, top down, not coming from the bottom. This is an above the collar problem, not a below the belt problem. So, where the problem exists, that's where the solution lies, up in your brain. So, when you have greater understanding about that, you will not use the ED pills every time. You will start building arousal slowly. Your partner will enjoy it. That will help you become aroused. We know from science that men become aroused watching women become aroused. So, spend time with your partner building healthy arousal. Secondarily, use technology, either have a qEEG brain map so you can see if you have arousal dysfunction in your brain and to what level. Then you can engage in neurofeedback at the top tier levels with me and my team, or you can get into the digital program and learn how to do it yourself. This is imperative to heal your brain. The fastest, it's the quickest way to do it, and it's highly successful and it's totally measurable, which me, when I geek out on science, absolutely loves that. When I work with people, I can see their brain improving day to day. There's charts and graphs that visualize how your brain is improving within sessions and across them. This is absolutely something you can overcome. I work with so many people who have struggled with ED for a year, 5 years, over a decade, and they become convinced that they're going to have to live with it forever. But I want you to realize that loop of explicit matter, worry, poor sexual performance, more explicit matter, more worry, that is keeping you stuck. We have to pattern interrupt that and break the loop at the core, your brain. So head on over to drtrishleigh.com, begin resensitizing your brain back in your life, stop desensitizing your brain. And if you need help with that, please reach out because I'm here for you, my friend. All right. I hope this helps you out. And as always, control your brain or it'll control you. I'll see you next time.